Let's jump right into this explainer, where we're going to completely unpack the foundational concepts of human development. We're looking at how we actually measure the progress of our societies. For a long time, it was all about the cold, hard numbers of economic output. But today, we are moving way beyond that to look deeply at what it literally takes for people to thrive.
Here's our quick roadmap for the explainer. We'll start with growth versus development, then move into the human-centric shift, defining a meaningful life, building human capabilities, and finally, wrap it up with the 4 pillars.
Okay, kicking things off with Section 1, Growth versus Development.
So, take a look at this question. Do growth and development mean the exact same thing? Because for decades, the assumption was totally that these two words were interchangeable, right? We hear them constantly. Plant growth, city development, personal growth. But when we're talking about human geography and communities, do they always go hand in hand? Like if a city grows, does that automatically mean it has developed? Well, the short answer is, not necessarily.
This comparison brilliantly illustrates the difference. Growth is just a change in numbers. It's quantitative. Development, on the other hand, means an actual positive improvement in quality. It's a bit like this. If a city's population grows from 100,000 to 200,000 over a few years, we can confidently say, yep, the city has grown. That's just a quantitative fact. But if the housing, the basic services, the public facilities, if all of that remains exactly the same as before, then that growth has absolutely not been accompanied by development. Development demands that conditions actually get better. If there are no new hospitals or schools for those extra 100,000 people, life actually gets worse, not better.
Now look at these satellite images of Band Aceh before and after the 2004 tsunami. They show us something fascinating, which is that a city can experience dramatic negative growth. Growth is just value neutral. It can go up or it can go down, right? A city's size can shrink rapidly because of a natural disaster. But development, by definition, is always value positive. You literally cannot have development without an increment or addition to existing conditions. So while positive growth is required for development, positive growth alone doesn't guarantee development.
Moving right along to Section 2, the human-centric shift.
For the longest time, the strict rule for measuring this stuff was almost unbelievable by today's standards. Basically, a massive economy meant you were a highly developed nation, even if the actual citizens saw no real improvement in their day-to-day lives. The primary metric was simply the size of a country's economic growth. If a nation's wealth increased on paper, boom, it was deemed developed, completely ignoring the quality of life, the available opportunities, or the freedoms enjoyed by the people actually living there.
You see things that are, and ask why. I dream of things that never were, and ask why not. In the late 1980s, an incredibly flexible thinker named Dr. Mahbub-ul-Haq used this famous George Bernard Shaw quote to inspire a totally new way of measuring success. He wanted to prioritize human choices over just economic size. Dr. Haq, who was a visionary Pakistani economist, introduced this real game-changer of a concept, that development should be entirely about enlarging people's choices so they can lead long, healthy lives with dignity. He essentially took people and put them right back at the center of the development conversation. And he didn't do it alone. Working closely with his friend, Nobel laureate Professor Amartya Sen, who really championed the idea of increasing freedoms, Dr. Haq created the Human Development Index in 1990. This set the global standard that we actually still use today. Professor Sen's massive contribution here was pointing out that increasing freedom isn't just the main goal of development, it's actually one of the most effective ways to make development happen in the first place. And since 1990, the United Nations Development Program has used this exact framework to publish the Human Development Report every single year.
Which brings us to Section 3, defining a meaningful life.
So a long life just isn't enough on its own. True human development creates conditions where people can lead purposeful lives that are rich with health, talent, and freedom. Think about it. Simply existing for 100 years doesn't really equal a developed life if those years are spent without the means to live decently. A truly meaningful life requires being healthy enough to participate in society, having the actual avenues to develop your own unique talents, and crucially, having the freedom to chase down your goals. Without those things, a long life isn't much of a prize, is it?
Let's dive into Section 4, building human capabilities.
Now we have to talk about what stops people from having that meaningful life. People's choices are often extremely restricted by their inability to acquire knowledge, by social discrimination, or just simple material poverty. Very often, individuals literally don't even have the capability to make the most basic life choices. And this could be due to inefficient institutions, a total lack of resources, or systemic hurdles that simply stop them from leading healthy lives or getting an education.
Here's a heartbreaking example.
An uneducated child's dream of becoming a doctor is halted before it even begins, simply because her lack of education limits her capabilities. It isn't that she lacks the desire or the innate potential, right? Her choice is just completely taken away by a lack of capability. In the exact same way, a person suffering from material poverty can't simply choose to get expensive medical treatment for a disease. If we genuinely want to enlarge people's choices, we absolutely must build up their capabilities in health, education, and access to resources.
And this is exactly why government interventions are so absolutely crucial. Take the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao program in India, which specifically addresses the declining child sex ratio. Programs like this are vital for building the capabilities that allow girls to access meaningful lives. By actively stepping in to safeguard girls and promote their education, institutions can help tear down those barriers of social discrimination. This directly leads to giving these girls the real power to make choices about their own futures.
Finally, let's look at Section 5, the 4 pillars.
To support this massive idea of human development, we rely on a framework of 4 specific pillars. The first pillar is equity. Equity demands that opportunities aren't restricted by who you are. It means tackling the reasons why specific groups, like women or economically backward communities, might drop out of school. True equity means the playing field is entirely level. When we look at school dropout rates, for instance, and see that a large number of socially and economically backward groups are leaving education early, well, that is a failure of equity. Their life choices are being unfairly limited by a lack of access to knowledge.
The second pillar is sustainability. Now, sustainability isn't just an environmental buzzword here. It means ensuring continuity. If a community fails to send girls to school today, it squanders the opportunities of an entire future generation of young women. Every environmental, financial, and human resource has to be used with the future in mind. If we don't value the education of girl children right now, we severely curtail their career choices later, and that creates a ripple effect that damages the development of the next generation. Pillar number 3 is productivity. This reinforces the beautiful idea that a nation's true wealth is its people. Improving their knowledge and health directly boosts their work efficiency. We aren't just talking about making more widgets in a factory here. This is about human work. When you invest in people, giving them better health facilities, enriching their knowledge, you massively increase their productivity. Ultimately, the people themselves are a country's greatest asset.
And the fourth and final pillar is empowerment. This means having the power to make choices, which comes from increasing both freedom and capability. It requires people-oriented policies to give the most disadvantaged groups the freedom to finally make their own choices. It requires good governance. Empowering socially and economically disadvantaged groups is arguably the most important step in true human development, because it directly hands them the reins to their own destiny. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to think about the pillars supporting your own journey. Ask yourself, which capabilities do you need to build today to reach your own truly meaningful life? Growth might be inevitable, but development, that qualitative, positive change, requires intention, equity, and empowerment. Thanks for exploring the real metrics of human progress with me today. Keep asking the big questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.